Coming up next, we have a talk from two designers from No Static Games, Bryan and Juan, who will be talking about rap. But specifically rap in the context of video games. How do you make rap into a playable system? While rap has started to emerge in gaming, there is still little analysis on the subject matter. So let us welcome Bryan and Juan to talk about this.
Thank y'all for joining us today, and shout out to the GDoC folks for giving us a platform to share some of our knowledge with y'all today. Before we begin, I want to first give y'all a quick overview of what we got planned for today and make sure that y'all are in the right place. In our talk, Levels and Rhymes, Rap Mechanics in Video Games, we will be taking a look at games with rhyme and rhythm mechanics and how those have evolved over the years. Using Sean Alexander's 2019 GDoC talk on hip-hop and video games as a jumping off point, which if you haven't seen already should definitely check out, we'd like to share some of the insights we found as we continue to develop our own rap-inspired video game. The talk will be broken up into 3 different parts. In part 1, we will look at the historical context for what different games in the past have tried when trying to create rap-inspired mechanics and interactions, essentially the games that paved the way for the work we're doing now and continue to inspire us. For part 2, we'll be sharing some of our own research and prototypes, as well as different lessons that we've learned while working on our own rap-inspired game, Supersonic Rhyme Chamber. And for the third and final part, we will be summarizing our key takeaways from these explorations and share some thoughts for what the future of rap mechanics in video games could look like. Alright, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. What's good, y'all? My name is Juan Morales-Rocha, and I'm a game UX designer based out of California. A few of my homies and I started an indie studio called No Static Games, where we've been researching, learning about, and exploring the intersection of rap and video games. I'll let one of them introduce themselves now.
My name is Bryan Dilligard. I've been a game dev hobbyist for a few years, working on a lot of small game jam projects before starting up the No Static Game studio with the homies. I do cybersecurity and software engineering in my day job, and at night I work on games, beats, and writing. I've been a lifelong fan of rap music, hip-hop culture, and video games. One of my driving forces to be a game dev and work on this project was that I saw a lot of rock music and other genres represented in games in unique and interesting ways, but not a lot of rap, and I wanted to change that. Before we start, I wanted to give a little disclaimer. Due to this talk being primarily focused on rapping, we are not spending a lot of time on games that incorporate other forms of hip-hop like DJ Hero with DJing, Floor Kids with b-boying, the Def Jam series, and Jet Set Radio with graffiti. We thought we'd just mention them briefly because they are so important to the overall culture.
Our journey into the history of rap and games starts with Parappa the Rapper, released in 1996. Parappa not only has the honor of being one of the first influential rhythm games, but also one of the first mainstream video games about rapping. Parappa's DNA can be seen in lots of rhythm games that have come after, and most recently that influence can be seen in the smash hit Friday Night Funkin', released in 2020. Other notable rhythm games that have involved rapping, or at least a rap aesthetic in some way, include 2 mini-games from the Rhythm Heaven or Rhythm Tengoku series. These mini-games are aptly named Rap Men and Love Rap. Parappa, Friday Night Funkin', Love Rap, and Rap Men are good representations of rap in games, but they all share the same issue in regards to the portrayal of rap. They primarily touch the surface of rap as an aesthetic, but don't really explore the art form or culture more deeply.
Rap has been featured in karaoke games over the years, but the most notable games have been Get on a Mic, released in 2004, and Def Jam Rap Star, released in 2010. Both games feature popular rap songs that can be sung/rapped along to, but also include a couple of interesting features. Both games measure the player's pitch and how well the lyrics of the songs were recited. Get on a Mic may be up for debate in this case. The games also included a freestyle mode. In this mode, players were given custom instrumentals to rap over, but in the case of Def Jam Rap Star, players were also able to create simple music videos that could be shared amongst an online community. Get on a Mic and Def Jam Rap Star, with not only their karaoke component, but live freestyle function, allowed players to assume the role of a rapper during play. However, the freestyles weren't graded in any kind of way, and it becomes more of a party trick geared for multiplayer experiences. As a sidebar, the multiplayer social component inspired by Def Jam Rap Star will come up again later when we talk about the new trend of rap in VR games.
Another common depiction of rap in games has been this visual novel style select a rhyme mechanic. The system usually focuses on the player being given a setup phrase and has to rhyme it with a matching phrase. Due to its technical simplicity, this is usually a minigame contained in a much larger game. Some of the games that we found that feature this type of mechanic are NBA 2K 2022, Assassin's Creed Valhalla with its flighting system, the Insult Sword Fighting from the Monkey Island series, and a small puzzle from the Mega Man Battle Network 2. An issue that we found with these types of systems is that they don't really feel like rapping, but instead simplify the action to picking the correct phrase from a list. These sort of systems don't really allow for player agency or expression, but are still an interesting exploration nonetheless. In Ghost of Tsushima, there's a haiku minigame that allows you to look at different aspects of the environment to string together a haiku. Once you make 3 selections, the player character narrates the haiku that you composed. While not necessarily a rhyming system, I think it's getting closer to what we hope a system like that can look like. In recent years, a new type of rap game has started to come out that really maximizes player expression and choice. These games still focus on the words, but feel more dynamic and experimental. Some of the games that fall under this category are Madverse City from Jackbox Games, the unfortunately canceled Project Rap Rabbit from the creators of Parappa the Rapper and Guitar Man, and the still in early access Insecure the Come Up game by the folks at Glow Up Games. All of these games allow the player to make a choice about the words that go into the rhymes rather than following a strict path. Due to these games designing around player choice and expression, they have an overall deeper impact on player immersion and the feeling of actually being a rapper.
Another type of rap game that we have found are ones that try and fit hip-hop and rap elements around a classic JRPG type framework. Some of these games parody the careers of famous rappers with the likes of Kanye Quest 3030 and The Legend of Drake Rise of the Sixth God. Some take pre-existing rappers and try to tell unique and new stories in the format like Hip Hop RPG and Tales of the Elements. Then there is something like Concrete Rose, a new and experimental game inspired by Undertale, Earthbound, and Chrono Trigger, trying to take the base elements of hip hop and rap and apply them to a JRPG. We actually got the developer of Concrete Rose, Dorori DeJesus, to come through and talk about the game, so I'm going to step back and pass it off to him.
What up, y'all? My name is Droid DeJesus. I am a narrative designer and I'm working on a game called Concrete Rose, which is a hip-hop action JRPG, or in a simpler way to say it, it's a really dope game. You play as Jay, he's a DJ, and you're fighting these aliens called the Void. Now, the Void are capable of infecting others and amplifying their negative emotions such as anger and hate, and you, the player, have to decide if you're going to respond to these actions peacefully or radically and live with consequences. And that's not to say one is better than the other, rather one is appropriate at certain times and the other one is more appropriate at the other times, and it's up to you to navigate those territories. One of the things that's been really fun working on this project has been studying on the history of hip-hop and kind of seeing how rare it's been in games. Even when games borrow the aesthetic of hip-hop, it's almost always in a rhythmic sense. And so turning this into something that's more cultural for me has been a really important process. The name itself comes from a poem by Tupac Shakur called The Rose That Grew from the Crack in the Concrete that's been influential on my life. But I take this one step deeper. I don't just look at hip-hop as an aesthetic. I think hip-hop can influence storytelling. And the way I tell stories and the way I write borrows heavily from hip-hop. I used to rap back in the day, and I still take a lot of those techniques, borrowing from this idea of a hierarchy of language. Focus on the action and the ideas before you focus on the descriptions. And I think you'll notice your writing will get a lot better and cleaner in games. And that's just one way you can look at hip-hop as an influence, and it seems kind of self-evident now, but there are plenty of other techniques that hip-hop uses in their structures, right? They have this verse-chorus structure of things playing back and forth, and I think there's a lot you can learn from that. For those of you interested, I'll be hopefully giving a talk at GDC on this very subject. I gave a similar talk at Narrowscope in 2022, and I'm looking forward to presenting this, deep diving into this even further at GDC in 2023. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.
With the rising popularity of VR, the metaverse, and massive multiplayer social hubs like GatherTown and Roblox, these platforms have become a space for rappers and amateurs to gather and show off their skills to one another through battle or mass cipher. Professional rappers have also taken to doing live concerts in these spaces as well, like Denzel Curry in Roblox and Travis Scott in Fortnite. Focus, one of the rappers that we talked to while compiling research, created his own social hub in AltSpace VR to provide fans with performance experiences during the height of the pandemic.
Before we continue on to the second part of our talk, we wanted to share some footage for a game that unfortunately was never released. It was an early 2000s concept for a project that took inspiration from the four corners of hip-hop: MCing, DJing, breakdancing, and graffiti. For the sake of time, we'll primarily be focusing on the MCing or rapping portion, but from researching the project, it's been really interesting to see the sort of ideas that were being worked on at the time. Coming across this extremely ambitious game that hoped to combine elements of music and culture before projects like GTA San Andreas and Guitar Hero saw the light of day is really fascinating to me as someone interested in the history and evolution of games. So, without further ado, I want to present to you all Skills, a project lost in time.
don't you tell me a story? Please tell me a story too. Why don't you tell me a story? Please tell me. You tell me.
Check me out. Check me out. I'm a bad motherfucking DJ. This is why I talk this way.
Freestyle rap battles. Opponents using words as fists.
Like if I lost the battle, it would be my entire world. You don't understand. My whole life is over.
Down on competition like Rich Craftsman.
Make it so you feel like you're the MC and you're not just doing like the set of moves.
Actually be able to control the verse, control what's being said.
And have like different routes you can take along with the same rap, so it feels like the player's actually doing a freestyle.
Actually be able to branch off and take
branch off and get faster and faster and do like crazier and crazier lines until like you just can't keep up with it anymore. But it's like it's not gonna punish you for having like a slower style. It just depends on like which way you want to take it.
There has to be people who are really pushing hip hop to the next level, and a certain amount of old school heads in here, you know, as far as to pay respect to this as a culture, which hip hop is, you know.
You gotta know your history.
Yeah.
You know,
He's going around saying that he's a championship fighter, but when he meets me, he'll fall 20 pounds lighter. Now, I'm not saying this just to be funny, but I'm fighting Ernie because he needs the money.
They rhyme, they are to a beat, and they are aimed directly at the specific weaknesses of the opponent.
Man, you ain't supposed to be kicking it like David Carradine. Whackness repels on me like two magnets with same polarity. I'm an urban legend, a wordsmith, veteran with a competitive double edge that I'll stab into your abdomen. What can I say? I'm nice with the words I recite. I'm out of sight like satellites in broad daylight. One of a kind, harder to find, stunning your mind. When you were peddling dimes, I was home studying rhyme. I'm a natural at putting the herd on them, stomping our competition from Long Island to Compton. I slaughtered these martyrs, I've mastered the art of spitting shit so dirty I had to gargle with holy water. I served everything from weed to gay, make 3 G's a day, the paper trail leads the way. What you know about gunplay? I'm harder than Scarface, bucking shots down a crowded one-way. I've been shot like Pac, Big, and Fitty. I gave the Grim Reaper my 280, still ain't hit me.
Alright y'all, so that was Skills. I hope you all enjoyed that blast from the past. I know when I first saw this footage, I was definitely in awe and imagining what it would have been like to have been able to play it myself. It's really fascinating to see how they were exploring a lot of the same ideas that we've been experimenting with, but in unique and different ways. Now we will talk a bit about our own research and explorations as we continue to work on rap-inspired prototypes at No Static Games. Early on, we came to the realization that while rap in real life can seamlessly combine the elements of rhythm and rhyme, trying to create a single playable system that combines the two from the start is very difficult. This led to us breaking down rap into 2 different components: word-focused or rhyme-based interactions versus beat-focused or rhythm-based interactions. We then decided to create a chart where the rap components were represented on the y-axis, while turn-based versus real-time systems were represented on the x-axis. This chart allowed us to do 2 things. 1, we could map out where previous rap mechanics in games exist, and 2, we could more easily identify gaps in a specific area and try to create a prototype that answers what a mechanic in that quadrant might look like. We'll be sharing some of those prototypes with you now and some of the lessons we picked up along the way.
Spitters is a 2D deck building puzzle/card battle game focused on rhyme matching. Spitters was spawned out of the question, can I make a game about rapping without making it a rhythm game? In Spitters, players investigate their opponents to discover their weaknesses and strengths and engage in rap battles with their pre-constructed rhyme deck using knowledge from the investigation. The investigation would take the form of digging through someone's social media to find out information about them. When thinking up games, I usually start with narrative, and I thought this would have been a good way to tell subtle stories about the opponents because words found in the investigations would reflect aspects of the enemy's personality. Battles and spitters play out on a portrait-oriented screen where words fall from the top of the screen to the bottom. The player will have to pick 2 or more words that form a rhyme to do damage to the opponent to get their confidence, this game's version of health, to 0 and win. The player can take damage when the opponent collects 2 rhyming words when they fall off screen. When the player's confidence falls to 0, it is game over. Weak and strong words that the player collected in the investigation portion can be used in battle to gain advantage over the enemy as well. I wanted to create a rap-inspired game that is something different from Parappa or a karaoke game like Def Jam Rap Star. I wanted to primarily focus on the construction of rapping and feeling like a rapper on their toes in a rap battle. After working on Spitters for many years, I unfortunately hit a wall with it and sadly haven't returned to it for a while. I like to think that the ideas I had for it are being repurposed and sourced in some way.
One of the places where we began to experiment more deeply with the idea of rap mechanics in games was during the Oculus Launchpad program. One of the first prototypes we developed at the time was called the wordsmith mechanic, which was an implementation of a speech-to-text system. The wordsmith mechanic would allow players to say words, have those words appear in VR space, and then be able to manipulate those words within the space to write out their lyrics. After many other iterations, the first official prototype that we submitted as part of the Launchpad program used a system that we coined the follow the flow mechanic. We created something similar to the track system in Guitar Hero, but set to rap. Instead of trying to hit specific notes on a beat, the notes were mapped to the cadence and flow of words being spoken, which was a really interesting problem to try and work around. Additionally, we were able to leverage hand tracking for the follow the flow system, which we felt had a nice correlation with gestures that some rappers tend to do while they're performing. This prototype was a first real inkling of Source, and it was really exciting to see some of our different ideas start to come together. However, at the end of the day, the team felt that there was more that could be done, so we decided to store the follow the flow system away for the time being and continue to experiment with other rap mechanics. For our next prototype, we wanted to work on a more action-based rhythm game that allowed for rhyme selection inspired by the likes of Parappa. For this prototype, the player would have projectiles coming at them that they would have to hit on the beat, while their opponent, an NPC named the Toucan King, raps against them. Earlier on, we were experimenting with the idea of the player using a boomerang as the tool for interaction with the game world. However, we quickly learned that trying to hit a projectile flying through the air with a boomerang just required a really precise level of timing that didn't really work well for a rhythm-based interaction where the telegraphing and feedback needs to be pretty locked in. This led us to swap out the boomerang for a paddle, which is a lot easier for folks to use with a rhythm-based interaction.
Our second post-VR prototype was called Dictate the Flow. In this concept, the player could control how the words spoken in a verse are recited. We modeled this idea off of combo chaining that is similarly found in skate games like the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series and the freestyle mode found in Parappa. The point of this prototype was to give the player freedom to manipulate the speed of syllables in a verse for points using joysticks.
Alright y'all, we're almost done. For this final section, we would like to talk about what we think the future of rap in video games could look like and what we ourselves hope to see and continue exploring within the space.
Something that we are desperate to see in future rap games is a bigger emphasis on player choice and freedom for what goes into a specific rhyme. Games are a great medium for having a player assume a role, and by giving players more control over the raps they are reciting, immersion into that role can be deepened. Another thing we want to see is the incorporation of different rap styles. There are so many variations of rap styles, but I don't think games have previously explored styles like melodic rap, crunk, and G-funk as some examples. Stories in games can also be influenced by rapping and the storytelling elements used in the art form. For more info on that, check out Jorori De Jesus' talk from Neriscope. Shout out to him.
Outside of the representation of rap itself, we're also interested in how different interfaces and platforms will influence how we interact with rap in games. We're already seeing examples of virtual spaces being created for the purpose of allowing folks to share in a cipher or rap battle with one another in apps like Horizon World and VR Chat. Additionally, as interfaces continue to evolve, it'll be exciting to see how we can leverage new technologies to create unique mechanics inspired by rap and hip-hop culture. Today, that could mean experimenting with hardware like the crank on the Playdate or the adaptive triggers of the DualSense controller. In the future, it could mean exploring voice or brain-computer interfaces as a way to interact with different gameplay systems. Alright y'all, that's our talk. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that you found some of the stuff that we were able to share with y'all helpful. We're really curious to see what the future of the space will look like, and are excited to continue exploring it with our crew at No Static Games. If you're interested in the topics of rap and video games, please be sure to connect with us so we can start building a community where we can support one another, as well as share resources and knowledge with each other. Shout out to all the folks who made this talk possible, and those who continue to support us as we continue moving forward. Thanks so much for your time. We hope you have a great rest of your GDoC. We'll catch you later. See ya!
Thank you, Juan and Bryan, for that wonderful talk. I hope y'all learned a lot about rap. In the meantime, have you given Game Devs of Color Expo a follow yet on the social networks? If not, we would greatly appreciate it. We are at the handle GDoCExpo. Go ahead and smash that follow button.